Welcome to Ignite&Scale, the podcast where we dive into the journeys of founders and leaders who are transforming industries, scaling businesses, and igniting change. I'm your host, Mike Allen, and today I'm delighted to welcome a guest who has been at the forefront of the UK's leasing market for over 2 decades, Dave Timmis, the founder of leasing.com. Leasing.com has played a pivotal role in shaping the leasing industry. As we wrap up this season, I'm delighted to be digging into Dave's journey as a founder, the challenges and successes, and how he steered the company through some significant shifts in the automotive landscape. Dave, it's great to have you on, and perhaps if we can kick off by introducing yourself and leasing.com and maybe highlighting your leadership and vision since founding the business in 2000.
Thanks, Mike. So I'm the founder, CEO of leasing.com. If anyone isn't familiar with leasing.com, we aggregate all of the best car and van leasing deals in the UK. And uniquely, we do that from the widest range of brokers, dealers, manufacturers and funders. So leasing.com is widely recognised as the original and indeed the biggest car leasing comparison site. So quite a good way to think of us is like Rightmove is to property.
Yeah, no, it's a good analogy. And maybe if you reflect on the journey from contract hire and leasing.com to leasing.com, what were the pivotal moments that defined the company's direction and growth?
There's been a few of those. February 25, that's actually, it is the 25th of February 25, marks the 25th anniversary of the business that has become leasing.com. So by that, what I mean is contract hire and leasing, which was the former name of leasing.com, was actually launched in 2000, which obviously is it's a long time ago, but it's especially a long time in internet days. It was really, really early in the internet days. Painful dial-up internet connections. There was no Google. The search engines were Overture, Ask Jeeves, Lycos, Alta Vista. I'm sure that you remember those, Mike. I think you're a similar age, maybe slightly older than me, but obviously. but, I think we're both old enough to remember a few of the things that were going on at that time. But what struck me was that the car leasing market was very deal based, so it was very much offers led and very time sensitive. And the consumer offering was mainly from brokers, and they could only really advertise in car magazines and newspapers like the Times and the Telegraph. Car magazines would have, they'd be filled with probably maybe 40 pages of classified ads from brokers. But that was all out of date by the time it was printed, and most readers weren't actually interested or indeed in the market for leasing a car. So even if they were car leasers, the chances were they were basically mid-term in a contract. And of course, leasing was a lot more niche then than it is now. So I thought if we could drive large numbers of in-market consumers to the website, people that were actually looking to lease, and to allow brokers to be able to publish deals in real time, then we could be onto a winner. So it's easy to look back now, but I did think that the internet thing, as we call it, could take off. And I suppose I recognised the niche marketing opportunities. And, well, like with most things, that are good ideas, most importantly, I did something about it. With us building what is now leasing.com. As I said, it was formerly Contract Hire and Leasing, amongst other sites. The first site that we launched was called Import a New Car, when you could import, excuse the pun, but a new car from Europe and save a load of money. And then car supermarkets soon after. That was carsupermarkets.co.uk. And then, as I said, contracthireandleasing.com, the van website, and then even the green car website, which was launched in June 2007, but was way ahead of its time. So I think at the time you could only really write about the Nissan Leaf because there wasn't really many other electric cars out there. So you could probably get the picture. We were very much focused on the automotive sector of internet advertising. But don't forget, this was 2000. 2000. I'd registered the first domains in 1999, and most brokers didn't even actually have a website. Advertising online was very new. I remember having to sell the concept. It was from my back bedroom in my house at the time. I was literally selling the concept of actually advertising online. So now automotive advertising is massive. But I do remember conversations like, wait, so you want us to advertise on your website? How's that going to work? Because it was genuinely a new thing. As I said, it sounds really bizarre now, but it was such a new thing. So through a lot of hard work, we built a great website. Probably not great by today's standards, but it was good at the time.
Okay, yeah.
And we built a great reputation, and we attracted big volumes of high quality in market consumers. And so we gave a great ROI to our advertisers, and clearly it was just what consumers wanted.
It's a nice combination.
Yeah, well, I suppose, keeps both sides happy, doesn't it? But my background was in sales and marketing, and I knew nothing about the internet or internet advertising. I definitely wasn't a programmer. But as I said, internet advertising was pretty much a new thing. But I do remember, sad as it is, reading advertising on the internet on honeymoon. And I
Oh,
remember, not for the entire honeymoon, but part of it. And I remember subscribing to Jobs by Email, it was called. I think it might have been an email alert from a site called JobSite or something. But every day I'd get jobs for internet advertising sales, and I subscribed to it, thinking, well, this could give me an opportunity to learn a bit more about this. But I remember thinking when one of the emails came in one day, what am I doing? What am I doing with one eye on these jobs by email alerts? And so I thought, for as long as I'm looking at that, I'm not giving the business its full attention that it needs. So I do remember unsubscribing to these jobs by email alerts, and then literally focusing completely, as quite rightly I should have done, on the business. So I moved a couple of times into bigger home offices. The business was, for a few years, home based. Bit of a thing now, that really, isn't it? But
you're ahead of your time all the way here, Dave. Well ahead of your time.
So yeah, moved to a couple of bigger home offices, and then moved to a barn, which was basically at the farmhouse that I lived in at the time. But it was after being approached about selling the business in early 2006 that I decided to ramp up from what was really a very good lifestyle business and move to a proper office, which is appropriately named Domain House, hence the domains that obviously we operate off. And to grow the business, and it was then that I recruited an IT manager, more developers, because we had a couple of developers already, but we recruited more account managers, because it was me doing all of the selling at the time, and indeed marketing. We recruited a marketing manager and I think somebody else in marketing. I can't remember now. But yeah, we moved in March 26th of March 2007, and it took 3 weeks until we finally had broadband.
Wow. In
Um,
the main
in,
house.
in Domain House, exactly. We ended up having to have a wire between the two buildings, so there was a building the same as ours next to us in Watchgate, and there was well, they kindly lent us some internet connection for a period. So yeah, like I said, we're talking now around about 2007, but I remember reading an article in Motor Trader, which of course you'll be familiar with, Mike, in May 2006. And the article, I've still got it. It was Internet Advertising Comes of Age. Yeah, 1st of May 2006. And it was all about how dealers must embrace this new technology of the internet. So again, when I look back at things like that, you can clearly see how things have come on. But by now, we had a portfolio of motoring websites. But leasing was always the biggest contributor and therefore got the majority of resources. But if we fast forward to 2016, I remember it being concluded not long before the Christmas party, if I remember rightly. The domain acquisition, we acquired the domain leasing.com and leasing.co.uk. So I suppose these are quite pivotal moments. The domain acquisition. And we sat on the domain for a while. Spent most of 2018 developing and rebranding, with an agency. So we spent most of the year working on the new site, the UX, user experience, and the whole customer friendly lifestyle image, which is what we're moving to, of leasing.com. My vision was, although they're in different industries, of course, hotels.com, booking.com, leasing.com. That was literally how I sort of saw things. So the leasing.com journey, though, really started when we launched leasing.com on the 31st of January 2019. So, as I said, we've got a lot of history. We're a very established customer. We've got obviously a great reputation in our sector. But the leasing.com journey started, I suppose it's just literally 6 years ago now, isn't it? In January 2019, which I'll come on to in a little bit. But yeah, the relaunch included loads of stuff, including a big national billboard campaign, something like about 560 odd big 48 sheet billboards up and down the country.
I've seen them.
Plus, pardon, you've seen them, yeah.
I've seen them, yeah. Very good.
Yeah, they're good. They're very distinctive. But there was a lot of them. So, and then a load of digital ones on top of that around key areas like Birmingham. We had a radio campaign, a fleet of trucks, which I think you said you've seen. Obviously, our target audience is motorists, so trucks made sense. Lots of online advertising, of course. EFL sponsorship with the leasing.com trophy. Television and so on. And then, of course, slightly later, the leasing.com stadium became part of that mix. But of course, it seems a bit of a distant memory. But all of this blaze of publicity and our rebrand, it was all followed by, in January 2020, Brexit. And then the dreaded global pandemic. Then this wasn't enough. The Ukraine war that caused havoc. It caused, along with the other things, new car shortages, supply issues for about 3 years, with massive disruption, of course, as you'll know more than anyone, in the new car market. And of course, the leasing market in particular thrives on oversupply, which was most certainly not the case for a few years. And I think we're in the ballpark of about 2.5 million units that would have been registered as new vehicles over a period that are always missing from the market now. And obviously that wasn't great for the leasing sector because discounts weren't particularly big. So the domain acquisition, the rebrand and all the marketing has been an investment of millions into leasing.com. And with the exception of 2023, we've continued to grow each year to date. That's because we continue to invest. Growth for 24 year end was just under 30%, which is pretty good, especially given the market conditions not long before.
I mean, it's impressive, Dave, what you've done in a long period of time, and obviously, the automotive industry, even as you allude to, the last 5 years have seen significant shifts and conditions that we hadn't seen in the previous 20. And obviously, there's things like technological advancements as well. Consumer behaviours change a lot to reflect those market conditions. But it'd be interesting, really, if you could articulate how leasing.com has navigated some of those changes to remain a leader in the market, because that's been the constant in the last 25 years, despite some very, very different and challenging market conditions.
Yeah. Okay. So there's certainly been some significant shifts since we started. I think it's really important to always stay relevant. We always listen to our site users and our advertising partners, of course. We constantly ask both sides for feedback. We constantly invest in the site, in UX, so making the site as easy as possible for users and as slick as possible. And of course, in technology, marketing is a significant thing, and partner relationships and our people, of course, and people are absolutely key. And we've got a good team of people, at the office. And as you say, Mike, we're the market leader, but no other site actually does what we do. And by that I mean only leasing.com aggregates from brokers, dealers, manufacturers, and funders. And so, yeah, what that means is collectively we have coverage from all funders, and many deals as well that you'll see on leasing.com are exclusive. And we also have the biggest volume of deals and hence the best rates. Seen a lot of copycat sites over the years. Most of them claim to be the biggest car leasing comparison site. One even claimed to be the biggest from the day that they launched. Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting claims, obviously, that you'll see there. You might not recognise them as a consumer. And then we've also seen some of the really big, well-known motoring portals that have added leasing sections over the years, such as Top Gear. And that, for example, is a good example of one that is now powered by leasing.com. So yeah.
I mean, I guess, following on to my next question, leasing.com has always maintained a strong commitment to the leasing model, regardless of market conditions. But what would you say were the core beliefs or market insights that's driven this unwavering focus on leasing, especially when others diversified or disappear from the market?
Only put all of our eggs into one basket when we rebranded. Leasing.com certainly does. It does definitely do that. And I think there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's the right basket. Nothing wrong with having all your eggs in one basket as long as it's the right basket. That's something that I say to my children. um, but we have an unwavering focus on leasing because we believe in it. And we all know this, and you know this, obviously, with what you do. The mega trend, as it's called, is the shift from buying to using. We only have to look at our own lives with the likes of Netflix, Spotify, gym memberships, subscriptions, mobile phones, and the way we all pay, and upgrade our mobile phone every couple of years. But it's very similar with new cars and indeed used cars and the way that they're sold now. Some people are probably not even aware of the actual price of the car. It's the monthly payment that's key. And actually, before I was looking at some mainstream media headlines on this subject. I'll give you a few examples. Of this. Ownership is dead as usership fuels car market growth. That was Auto Trader. Okay, another one. Leasing is the norm amongst young drivers. That's from a website called Your Money. This one's posing a question, and the answer, if you read the article, was yes. Car finance, is leasing the model of choice? And then finally, there was one which said, owning a car will soon become a thing of the past. And that was in The Guardian. So, these are all mainstream publications. Clearly we were ahead of the curve when we started. But going back to 2000 when we started, our vision back then was to be the biggest car leasing portal. Note the word portal in the UK. We actually invented car leasing comparison later. And when we rebranded to leasing.com and culled the other websites that I referred to before, we really demonstrated our commitment to the leasing sector and rubber stamped it with the ultimate domain. Leasing.com is the go-to for consumers, awarded the most trusted car leasing comparison site. And through evidenced research, 9 out of 10 users got the best deal in the market on leasing.com. It was actually 96.5% that said they got the best deal on leasing.com, but we lowballed it rather than egg it like some do, and said 9 out of 10. And we've also recently passed 4,000 mainly 5-star reviews. I did actually put a post up on LinkedIn. I think it was last week, maybe possibly the week before, about that, because obviously we passed the 4,000 5-star, mainly 5-star reviews. Even the 4-star ones were usually comments along the lines of something like "fantastic site, found exactly what I was looking for," and then they give us 4 stars, which obviously is a little bit frustrating. And then the other thing is, leasing.com is also the benchmark for the industry with the manufacturers, and highly regarded by brokers and dealers as well. For the industry leading volume and conversion rates from the in-market consumers that use the site. And then Steve Fowler I was reading through this the other day, actually. Reading through this. You'll know Steve Fowler, obviously, top motoring journalist. Steve Fowler said, if you want to know what's happening in the new car market, you only have to look at leasing.com and Motability to see who's pushing what.
Wise words indeed. And just to change tack, Dave, I mean, obviously there's an increasing emphasis on electric vehicles and sustainability in the UK market, as we see, and that's only going to increase further. How do you see the leasing market evolving, and what role do you envisage leasing.com will play in facilitating this transaction?
Okay, so we've just had record inquiry volumes again for last month. I mean, we smashed about 7 consecutive records in January. It's becoming a bit of a joke. But yeah, we were 63% up year on year. And in addition to the growth from consumers on personal leasing, because that's definitely happening, business inquiries have grown to just over 20% of total. Because of the great low benefit in kind deals out there on EVs at the moment. So very much because of the great deals, in particular the great EV deals, we grew by just under 30% for the last financial year, and we're forecasting over 33% for this year, which will conservatively mean around about 33,000 new vehicle sales being directly attributable to leasing.com for the year. So it's been a great strong start for EV sales. And again, obviously it's been out there certainly in the trade press, but I think in consumer press as well. January has been the best ever month for EVs registrations. So it's it's an exciting time to be in the leasing and the EV space. And leasing.com, in answer to your question, is perfectly poised for continued growth. We're in a push market with lower consumer demand. So consumer demand is lower for new cars. So manufacturers are putting very attractive deals out there. And leasing enables manufacturers to achieve registrations and indeed EV targets, but without distress selling their vehicles through big list price discounts. Last year, I think it was around about June last year, one of the manufacturers was pursuing registrations, and it's a high-end electric car, circa 90 to 120,000 pounds ish. And in 3.5 weeks, leasing.com generated around 1,300 inquiries on both business and personal leasing, and they were blown away with that, as you can imagine. The leasing deals for EVs are very attractive, and leasing makes EVs affordable and low risk for a lot of consumers. And the other thing is there's lots of EVs coming off fleet or coming to the end of term where the actual values are way below their forecasted residual. And funders are, of course, not wanting to crystallise those losses. And so are putting those used EVs back into the market on leasing deals. So used car leasing, in particular used EV leasing, is an emerging market with some very attractive deals. We've recently gone live with the first of many new verticals on the site, with used car leasing under the releasing brand, which is re.leasing.com. And then, the thing is as well, another big thing is most consumers don't pay the final balloon payment on a PCP to keep the car. So they've effectively leased, but almost certainly paid more than they had actually leased, if that makes sense. More and more people are realizing that they should just lease their car rather than do a PCP. I mean, it makes sense, really, if obviously it's going to cost you less, but also if most people, and it is the absolute vast majority, somewhere circa 80%, don't actually pay the balloon payment and keep the car. So the other thing is as well, lease penetration with EVs is high. It's much higher than ICE vehicles, and again that makes sense because the technology and range with EVs are so rapidly improving, so much faster than ICE cars ever did. And again, that would make the appeal of buying your EV at the end of your PCP so much less attractive, because if the technologies are the technology has evolved so much, and then the prices are only going as well one way. The cost of new EVs is reducing, and we're seeing lots of great Chinese brands coming to market. And whilst there may be, well, certainly an obvious reluctance to take the risk buying an unknown Chinese car brand, leasing one, if the deal's right, makes it a no-brainer. You've only got to look at history and the success of Korean brands and what they've achieved. And brand loyalty is not what it was. Maybe people always years ago, they would stick to the BMWs or to the Fords or whatever. But yeah, the brand loyalty is definitely lower with leasing. And then you've also got to think, well, who wants to own a car if you've bought it from a defunct brand like Fisker?
Yeah, I know that. Look, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And finally, Dave, just as someone who started a business in a bedroom office and grew it to operate from a purpose-built facility, which I've visited and very impressive, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to scale their businesses in what's a very dynamic environment nowadays?
Clearly demonstrated this by what we do. I'd say focus on a niche. Our niche within obviously the automotive space is of course leasing. I'd say keep things simple. Focus on user experience and trust. Try things. Constantly A/B test using data, but also gut instinct. Don't just take things at face value. Build a strong brand. And again, demonstrated this with a strong domain that passes the radio test. Be prepared to invest significantly in marketing and partnerships. Build the right team. It's all about team. Be prepared for constant change and lots of hard work. And finally, always be learning and always be curious.
Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. That's great advice. Really appreciate you coming on. And maybe just as a closing comment, how's it best to get in touch if any listeners want to get in touch with you? And I should also add that the very insightful Leasing Insight report for 2024 has just been published, and we'll put that in the show notes for people to see the link if they're interested as well.
Yep. Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Mike. The best way to contact me would be via LinkedIn. Just look up David Timmis. Yeah, by all means, look me up on there. And if you want to connect with me, do so. If you want to obviously fire me any messages across, do so. But thanks again, Mike.
Pleasure. Thanks, Dave.
If you want to listen to more episodes of the podcast, we're on all good audio platforms.
Our website is also www.cambriaprivatecapital.com, and you can also find myself on LinkedIn and Twitter, where we publish our weekly blogs as well. Please do get in touch if you want more information.